It's kinda strange when you think about it, that it took until the days of Phoenix mode, casual mode, rewinding mechanics, and a much bigger focus on keeping all your units alive, that Fire Emblem ended up finally getting Mourning quotes. Only 2 games in the series have your units acknowledge that their comrades have fallen, being Shadows of Valentia and Engage, meaning that yes, there has never been a game that has dialogue like this, while also not having a way for you to simply rewind time during battle. It's a mechanic that would have suited the older games especially very well, where death was still an intended part of your story rather than something called an Iron Man challenge. So while Mourning quotes did maybe take a tad too long to arrive, I still think they are a beautiful and fantastic addition that now end up largely overlooked due to the way the games are played. I'd say we change that and look at how Shadows of Valentia and Engage handled this brand new addition, what makes it work and what makes it fall flat, and how it could be improved. So let's begin with one of the 3DS's last Nintendo games, our revisit to the continent of Valentia. While I do agree with my own opinion from 20 seconds ago that it is ironic that this title introduced both Milla's turn wheel and Mourning quotes at once, I do also understand why they came to the idea to introduce them here. There is no Fire Emblem game with a smaller roster of characters than Gaiden, and thus Echoes. You can only rarely bench units here, it's a very tight-knit group, and so you're very unlikely to feel apathetic towards any member of your army. Save for a few exceptions, every unit in this game is someone's friend, family member or mentor, so when one dies that is usually a heavy personal blow. And not just for them, for you as well. If one of your units is gone, they won't be replaced. You just lost a slot in your roster that no one will fill up for a long time, handicapping you for potentially significant parts of the game. This is very unique in the series, there is not another title where the same thing applies. Every other game has replacements lined up for your fallen warriors, but in Shadows of Valentia your characters are absolutely not disposable. And as such, if any Fire Emblem game would cause even the player to mourn a fallen unit, this was it. From that perspective, this being the game to introduce them actually makes a ton of sense. So let's take a look at how exactly they are handled here. Every character has one general mourning quote that is used whenever any unit dies. These range from feeling understandably shaken, like Claire,
The victory feels hollow.
to an expression of sadness, like Luthien,
We've nothing to celebrate now.
to a tad emotionless, but that's still a coping mechanism, like Kamui,
I guess death comes for us all.
to wildly inappropriate, like Dean.
War is death. You can mourn later.
Read the room, man. But where this feature undoubtedly shines the most is in the personal mourning quotes. Several characters have unique quotes for when a character dies they are close to, and most of them are heartbreaking. Get your tissues ready for a little supercut.
No! I can't go on without the 3 of us!
Aunties! I only fought so you could be happy!
Get up, Lou, you big dummy! Get up!
May? May, this isn't funny! For goodness sake, Python, get up! Python? Matilda, my love. How am I to go on?
Painful stuff. To continue on Clive and Mathilda for a second, hearing her quotes back to back is definitely interesting. Take a listen.
Sad as it is, we must move forward.
Clive! No, my love, stay with me!
Her general mourning quote definitely falls more in the Dean realm of things, although I do think her intention is more positive, more we have to keep going, rather than who cares, but the contrast between how she reacts to the loss of someone else versus her own is easily the biggest contrast in the entire game. Yes, my sister-in-law may be dead, but we have to keep looking forward. Until it's my man that dies and then we don't. There's also an entire subcategory of characters who take their friends and family's deaths in a different way. Take for example Gray.
Tobin, you idiot! What were you thinking?
And Python.
Forsyth, you damn fool. How did you think this would end?
Who approach the deaths of Tobin and Forsyth more from a you moron why did you get killed perspective. This angle is also used by Fernand when Clive dies.
Clive, you fool! What were you thinking?
but this is a quote that goes completely unused since Vernant is not playable in the main game. Berkut also has a general Mourn quote.
Men die. This could be your lot tomorrow.
That is definitely more in the Dean camp as well, indicating he was once planned to be playable, and what's also interesting is that several characters have mourning quotes for Celica, who of course can't die. Take a listen.
No. Oh, Celica. Not you.
I really hoped you'd find happiness, lass.
Celica. Your life had only just begun.
Seems like it was at one point possible for Celica to die, even in a way that Alm would know. Do think it is interesting though that Bowie and May don't have any mourning words for Celica, so perhaps that suggests that their recording sessions happened at a time where it was already known Celica wouldn't die. While most of these pieces of dialogue are phenomenal and really great, I do think there is one that stands out as notably weaker than the rest. And that is Katria, her quote for when one of her sisters dies.
No. No, it must be the three of us. Together.
Like, it's not terrible, but I don't think it's the most believable performance if I'm being honest. Compare it to Est.
No. I can't go on without the three of us.
And it feels like Katria doesn't care that much. Pala is also not crying her eyes out, but I do really like what she says.
No. Take me instead.
Whereas Katria just repeats what Est says, just without delivering the emotion as well. Easily the weakest one in my opinion, although it's still not embarrassing or anything. Like I said in my intro, this mechanic skipped 3 houses, which is a bit of a shame because the relationships between your units here are even stronger than in Shadows of Valentia. Some of the monastery dialogue does take inspiration from mourning quotes. Dorothea's infamous "We killed Verdi" definitely hits the same spot, but there's no way to hear, say, Dimitri's thoughts on Felix's death. And so we continue with Engage, which does do things a tad differently from Echoes. And I would say they're for the worse, unfortunately. Engage also has quite a lot of close relationships with all the siblings and the retainers and all that, so on the surface it's great to see this return, but there are some key elements that make it work a little less well. First, the big obvious, they're not voiced. Lines like Pandreos, Penadis, "No, Divine One, it has to be a lie. Praying for my sister's soul. Please, I can't." Doesn't hit the same when I'm the one saying it, does it? Let alone just reading it, the level of emotion, even if the line is beautifully written, doesn't hit the same spot. We did in return receive a lot of these quotes though, to the point they exist for every combination. What you just heard is what Pandreo says when Penet dies, but he also has quotes for when Bunet dies, when Fogado dies, when Bunet and Fogado die, when Bunet and Penet die, and when Fogado and Penet die, and when they're all dead. And that's just him. Almost every character has this many quotes to go around. That is impressive, but I can't help but feel it's quantity over quality. And while there are certainly areas where I can understand making that the priority, this is probably the #1 area where quality is more important than quantity. How many players have legitimately had, say, Fogado and Penet die in the same playthrough, triggering this quote? It can't be that many. And everyone that did will now not see the quote for when Bunet dies on his own, and vice versa. Giving the players so many different options in this regard is cool and great and all, but just giving Pandreo one mourning quote for, say, Penet, and then having it voiced, would in my opinion be preferred. Even if you could make the argument that some of these characters aren't meant for dialogue this heavy. Like, I admire Tamara's spirit and all, but saying you won't crumble after you've lost both your retainers and your brother is a bit too light for my liking. And the fact Bunet still has to acknowledge his obsession with taste and food when mourning his friends is insane. Another bit of a problem compared to Shadows of Valentia is the presence and the focus on the avatar. Echoes didn't have one, and that meant mourning characters were 100% focused on the person they lost, as it should be. But in Engage, there are quite some characters who rope a layer into their quote, and that makes it hit less. Alfred asking the Divine One if they think his fallen friends and sister were happy, Fogado asking if we could pray for Pandreo, Marin asking if it's okay to cry for Penet, Ivy asking you not to leave her too, like everyone else she loved. Don't get me wrong, in universe these are understandable lines, they're not poorly written or anything, that's not the point I'm trying to make. What I mean is that it makes this dialogue feel less like the heartbroken, raw and emotional panic, pain and agony the characters feel, as is the case in Shadows of Valentia, and more like the kind of conversation you might have at a funeral reception. Like, there's clearly a veil of mourning over the whole situation, but the immense emotions aren't there. There is a dialogue going on between the survivor and Alir, and that doesn't work as well as the cries of pain as seen in Shadows of Valentia, in my opinion at least. In Engage, Mephielda would already be looking past Clive, like Tamara does, when that's not what I would really like to see from quotes like this. It lacks the vulnerability and makes it a little too predictable, I guess is the word. But there's one thing I'm happy about, and that's the fact this mechanic hasn't just been left to the wayside after Echoes. I think IS wants to continue with this and views it as something that adds to the story and the characters, and I definitely agree there. Seeing how our units handle grief and pain adds a ton to who they are and how strong their bonds really are, arguably even more so than supports in some situations. But I do want to say that they really need to be voiced again next time. If Engage had voiced Mourning quotes, I guarantee you that this section about it would have been way more positive, because there are plenty of Mourning quotes here that are well written but never come to life because they aren't spoken. So, IS, if you're listening, keep the Mourning quotes in the game and please ask the voice actors to say that one extra line. I'll do it myself if you want, but your people call my people. Anyway, what are your favorite Mourning quotes? Weird as that feels to say. Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Fire Emblem content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.